and welcome to Chantex Multimedia live streaming all the way from Brisbane directly to your device. And it's been a wonderful weekend as we have seen, and it is wonderful to see that the rain has passed and that the tropical cyclone has passed over as well, but it took a little bit of battering on the north of Brisbane as well. So Sunshine Coast got quite a bit of that as well. We'll find out all about that and a little bit about what's happening with the weather news. So let's welcome Dilraj Dillard.
Good morning everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 29 degree. Brisbane area is partly cloudy with very high chance of showers, light winds, and there is chance of a thunderstorm during this afternoon and evening, and that is possibly severe. Fire danger is low to moderate. Sun protection is recommended till 10 past 4 and UV index is predicted to reach 14, that is extreme. Till tomorrow, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much for that update, Dilraj. Well, as I mentioned before that there's lots happening. Well, right now let's go and get an update on what's been happening with the cricket. As we know, everyone's been following the cricket, and unfortunately we can't be there, but let's see what's been happening with that, and let's see if we can bring you update on that. But I'll tell you what, later in the show and right after that news update, we'll have the Premier who's joining in with the updates. We'll be talking about some of the vaccines. We'll look at some of the cases in New South Wales, of course, and we'll look at the V5 countries. And as we know that India joins the V5 countries, there's the 5 countries which have launched vaccinations of their own, and they have started the vaccination process. All that coming up in the news. But first up, let's take a look at what's happening in the cricket news. So Pointing slams Aussie tactics, but legends split after India tail wag cricket legend. So Rating Pointing says that Australian fast bowlers weren't aggressive against a waggling Indian tail at the Gabba on Sunday. But fellow former Test player Simon O'Donnell believes the opposite is true, and the placement was too much time on bowling short when Josh Hazlewood claimed the wicket of Rishabh Pant in the Indians were 6 for 186 and is still 183 runs behind the first innings. But when Shardul Thakur 67 and debutant Washington Sundar 62 posted a 123 run 7th wicket partnership, and India ended up being only 33 runs behind the end of the innings it took. Australia so far is too long to break that rookie partnership, and Pointing was unimpressed with the bowling tactics used. I was a bit disappointed with the way Australians went about it, to be honest, Pointing said. I don't think that they were aggressive enough and didn't bowl enough short balls. They let the Indian batsmen be way too comfortable at the crease. They almost bowled the way these batsmen would have wanted them to bowl. It wasn't until we saw a bit of barrage from Mitchell, Stark, and even when Shardul went out, it was no surprise it was a ball after a bouncer. I don't think the Aussies were anywhere near aggressive enough, O'Donnell said. I'm seeing fantastic Australian attack, waste time trying to intimidate. I would really have a look at the tactics at the end of all of this. It seems to be an instructions to be from the chest to chin, Hazlewood said, and have claimed 5 wickets but was left with explaining to do after India's unheralded tail-enders put up strong numbers to heap the pressure on Australia. It left Australians feeling frustrated by the end of the day, as Hazlewood admitted that they let the visitors off the hook. We probably let pressure off at certain times throughout the day, Hazlewood said to reporters. We just let a few moments slip, and I think there were few half chances that could have been grabbed and made a bit of a difference. There's a little bit of frustration there, and obviously when you think 6 down, we are well on our way to knocking them over, but in this day and age, teams bat all the way down. credit to the team. We missed our mark a little bit in that period where we were probably just a touch full of short and a bit of width here. We just let them off the hook a little bit there and probably didn't build pressure the way we wanted to. Australia will be hoping they can set India a formidable target on day 4 and give them bowlers enough time to win the Boda Gavaskar Trophy. Australia will resume on day 4 at the Gabba with 0-21 with a lead of 54 and David Warner at the crease, and the most unlikely result at this stage. But given the ebbs and flows of an epic series, there is no doubt time that twists and turns will come in the final 2 days. It sets the scene for an enthralling day on day 4, and while neither side will be likely to win the series on the day 4, they can sure lose it, say teams. So the teams are: Australia has Marcus Harris, David Warner, Manas Labuschagne, Steve Smith, Matthew Wade, Cameron Green, Tim Payne at the wicket, and Pat Cummins, Michael Stark, Nathan Lyon, Josh Hazelwood. And India, Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill, Chestwar Pujara, Ajinkya Rahane, Mayank Agarwal, Rishabh Pant, Washington Sundar, Sardul Thakur, Navdeep Saini, Mohammad Siraj and T. Natarajan. So they were up to date with the cricket, up to date, and there's a lot to go through on day 4, as we know that there is a lot that's happening and going on there. Well, right now, let's take a look at what's happening with the news. And first up, we'll be joined by our Premier and the team and getting an update on what's happening right here in Queensland. Let's get that report. Yes, we are ready.
Hey, good Okay, good morning, Queensland. Well, today we're going to do 2 updates. The first one is going to be about Tropical Cyclone Kimi, and then we'll be doing the COVID update. So I'll start with the cyclone. So at the moment, Tropical Cyclone Kimi is a Category 1, could be a Category 2, and at this stage the predictions is it could hit landfall between Innisfail and Ingham. So we want everyone in these regions up north to be listening to their radio, listening to the media messages, because the Bureau will be giving you updates every 3 hours, and of course cyclones are a little bit unpredictable and they will move, of course, during the course of today. So there is a cyclone warning out and about at the moment. Our Queensland Disaster Management Committee will meet this afternoon at 3:30, where I'll be joined by ministers and also the mayors, the relevant mayors of the regions. And of course there's a lot of preparations that have been ongoing at the moment, especially with the local Disaster Management Committee. So I thank all of the mayors in the regions from Port Douglas all the way down who have been preparing for this event. David from the Bureau will give you an update in relation to the flood watch, but of course once this cyclone crosses land and brings the rain with it, can I please just advise everyone, if it's flooded, forget it. Please listen to the warnings and the flood watch, because we do expect there to be a lot of rain coming with this cyclone. So we'll give you another update this afternoon, and of course I know that people up in the north are very well prepared when it comes to cyclones. They know how to deal with these. They do listen to what authorities are saying, and they are very, very well prepared. So especially over the next few hours, please listen to the Bureau, and it's either likely to cross tonight or during tomorrow. So we'll be keeping everyone updated. So I'll hand over to David from the Bureau, then we'll hear from the State Disaster Coordinator. The Minister will answer any questions in relation to the cyclone, and then we'll move on to COVID. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Good morning. As the Premier said, Tropical Cyclone Kimi is currently at Category 1 intensity and is forecast to intensify and reach Category 2 sometime during the course of today or during Tuesday as it approaches or crosses the Queensland east coast, somewhere between Innisfail and Ingham. Tropical cyclone warning is current for areas, coastal and adjacent inland areas between Port Douglas, and that's just recently been extended down south to Ayr, and includes Cairns and Townsville. Heavy to intense rainfall and potentially dangerous flash flooding will be a risk about the tropical east coast over the next couple of days, and as a result a flood watch is current for coastal catchments between Cape Flattery and Ingham. Damaging to destructive winds with gusts to 150 kilometres per hour are expected to develop about the tropical east coast during the course of today, or may develop during the course of tomorrow, depending on the path that Kimi takes. Otherwise, abnormally high tides and large waves should develop about the coastal areas of the tropical east coast during the course of today and into tomorrow, with some minor flooding possible about foreshore areas. That's the update from the Bureau, but otherwise I'll hand over to Mr Golczewski.
Thank you. State Disaster Coordinator. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Premier. Good morning, everyone. So our preparations for this are very good in the local areas, so all of the councils and our local disaster groups are prepared for this. But it is important for the community to stay connected and listen to the messaging all day. As we have already seen with this system, its projected track has changed on a number of occasions, and we can expect that that may well still happen as the day goes forward. So for the community, please stay connected and listen to the messaging. It will be continuing all day. We will be sending out updates as they come in. Any persons that are in areas likely to be impacted should look at their local arrangements, including sandbagging and the like, and whether they need to do that. Obviously, we have had significant rain in parts of those areas recently, so we have very wet catchments. So we're watching very closely the flood levels, and we'll be issuing alerts as they come through. But as the Premier said, this is the time for preparation and to make sure that we're all doing the right thing. If it's flooded, forget it. If people need assistance, make sure that they are looking for it in a timely way. But when the time comes, and if we see a landfall in the areas that are impacted, people must be prepared to shelter in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you very much, and just wanted to reinforce those messages, particularly about Tropical Cyclone Kimi in the north and far north. So just reinforcing that warning area. Port Douglas to Lucinda, extending inland to Mareeba, so that includes places like Cairns, Cardwell and Atherton. There is a watch zone from Lucinda to Ayr, which includes Townsville. So if you're in any of those areas, please don't be complacent. I know we're Queenslanders, I know we go through cyclones every single year, but please do not be complacent. What Tropical Cyclone Kimi could bring is destructive winds up to 150 kilometres an hour, heavy rainfall, so that means flash flooding. That means major river flooding in some areas, particularly in the Herbert, Murray and Tully River catchments, which are saturated, which are very damp. So if you're in those areas, you need to prepare. As Steve Golczewski from Queensland Police said, if it's flooded, forget it. Have a plan about where you'll be travelling. Bear in mind where those river catchments are. Be aware that during this event, you could have flash flooding. There are storm tides predicted between areas of Yarrabah and Cardwell, so please, if you're on the coast there, be prepared. This is a cyclone. This is a tropical cyclone at potentially Category 2 at the moment. You do have to be prepared. So at home, if you're in those warning areas, if you're in those watch areas, please make all the preparations you need to do. That means securing property, trampolines, sheds, outdoor furniture, all of those things you usually do. You need to be ready for this event. I did just want to also highlight that the Bureau has got a watch out today for some severe thunderstorms here in southeast Queensland too, and parts of central Queensland. So that severe thunderstorm predicted for today and going into tonight could potentially bring intense rainfall, damaging winds and large hail as well. So there is flash flooding risks for the southeast and parts of central Queensland. So please check out the warnings on the Bureau of Meteorology website. Keep in touch with your media channels. It is very important you have a plan and you are prepared about these weather events. Be very, very careful about the intense rain that could come in southeast Queensland because it could bring that flash flooding. We're well prepared right across the state, and in fact the QFES Commissioner is here if any extra information is needed around QFES's preparations, but we have swiftwater rescue crews already stood up in the north and far north, and aircraft on standby to move them as the cyclone tracks to different locations. So we're on the ground now, we're able to deploy those resources to other places should the cyclone track change, and we're working very closely with all the other stakeholders to make sure we're ready for this event. But can I just repeat that message again for all Queenslanders? There's a cyclone on the way. Make preparations now, do not wait. Get ready for this event. It could bring intense weather, and that could impact you and your family.
Okay. Any questions?
I don't know who this is suited to, but given the wet catchments, how concerned are you about flooding in the north?
Yeah, so we were briefed on that this morning and we'll get further briefings. Yes, we are concerned about the flooding. That's why we have that flood watch out. And we will be able to give further information after our Queensland Disaster Management Committee meeting, which will be held at 3:30 this afternoon. So we'll be giving a further update at 4 p.m. this afternoon.
When do you expect conditions to peak, if they're worse?
We'll have a better idea this afternoon, Lydia. So, like I said, we'll get further updates this afternoon. But at the moment, we're concentrating on that area between Innisfail and Ingham.
This morning, this afternoon?
Sorry?
When do you think it'll be like that, this morning or this afternoon?
We'll get further updates this afternoon. So every 3 hours, the Bureau will be putting out alerts. So everybody in the north and the far north of our state should be listening to the media reports very, very closely, because the Bureau will be giving those reports every 3 hours, and we'll be giving a further update from the government, the state government, this afternoon at 4 p.m. for everybody. Okay?
Dave, sorry, what's your surname as well?
Grant, G-R-A-N-T.
Okay, we might move on to COVID now, if that's all right. So thank you, everybody. Just get the Health Minister and Deputy Commissioner can stay, and Dr Young. Okay. So, in very good news, Queensland, we've only had one new case overnight, and that has been an overseas acquired, detected in hotel quarantine. It's a female who's recently travelled from Brazil. So we have 25 active cases, and we have done in the past 24 hours 5,173 tests. So those test numbers are coming down, but can I say to everyone, please remember, if you have any symptoms, please go and get tested. So this is again really, really good news, and of course we're waiting till Friday morning 1 a.m. If we keep this track happening now, it's more than likely that all of those restrictions will be removed by Friday. So a few more days to go, but thank you for everyone who's been doing the right thing, especially with the mask wearing and listening to what you can do and you can't do. So I'll hand over to Dr Young.
Thank you, Premier. So one new case overnight, a lady in hotel quarantine recently returned from Brazil. So that's excellent news. No other cases related to our cluster from the Hotel Grand Chancellor, just those initial 6. We've still got a few more days to go before we can be totally confident that we haven't had any spread, but it is very, very good news. And thank you to everyone who's been following all of those restrictions in Greater Brisbane, and in particular wearing masks. I think it's a really good habit we should all get into, that if you're in a crowded space, if you can't maintain social distancing, that you really wear a mask, particularly on public transport and if you're going into any shopping centres. I think that will help us all as we go forward. Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you, Queenslanders, for doing the hard work, going out and getting tested. We want to see those test numbers continue. Of course, if you have any symptoms whatsoever, wherever you are in Queensland, come out and get tested. It's wonderful to see the results that we are getting, which is no additional community cases, and I can report that there's been 864 tests undertaken of contacts in relation to the hotel cluster. Of those 864, we have had no positive cases. So that is really positive results, which gives us confidence that we are containing this virus. But of course, we do have a few days to go, and the time frame is 1 a.m. on Friday the 22nd if we have no more community cases that are unlinked. So.
And that is a deadline which people will be following very, very carefully. But as the Premier said on the note of that cyclone, is that, you know, if you're in the areas, please do take care. And the other thing is that if you are driving around the flooded areas, as Queensland does get a lot of flood, and especially during this kind of cyclones, if you are in that area and if it is flooded, just forget it. Simple equation. You know, everything else can wait. Just find some safe ground and just stay put. I mean, there is no better advice than that. Of course, I know people try and risk everything to get across and get to wherever they want to get home or something. But no, wait. And there's nothing better than that. Well, right now, moving on with the news, other news is that Emirates is going to suspend all its flights coming to Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney.
They saved for 3 years to make the move, but couldn't have had worse timing. Ben Goodwin and his fiancée Amy Webster landed in the UK just weeks before the pandemic exploded.
We were barely scraping by, anxious all the time because it was just not a good situation to be in for either of us.
Their dreams in tatters, they decided to go home to Brisbane and bought seats on a Qatar Airways flight leaving next Thursday. Overnight, they got the news they've been dreading.
My stomach just fell. I couldn't find my booking, so called up. And sure enough, they had adjusted and kicked us off the flight because of the new caps that come in place.
Now, another major airline, Emirates, has announced it's suspending all flights into Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane for the foreseeable future, citing operational reasons. It comes after the federal government announced it was halving the number of international arrivals allowed into the country in response to new, more infectious strains of coronavirus circulating in Britain and around the world.
It's just infuriating. It's terrible. They've had nearly a year to organise just constant repat flights.
There are now 37,000 Australians stranded overseas, desperate to get home. Among them, Joaquin and Evie from Tamworth in New South Wales.
It's devastating. You wake up, you look at the news, you think, yet again, here's something else, yet another hurdle for people trying to get back.
The couple, who are both teachers, are stuck in an Airbnb in Liverpool with 2 children. They have tickets booked with Qatar Airways in early March and they're holding their breath.
If Emirates has gone that way, they've obviously seen that it's not viable for them as a business to run it. So I'm really worried that other airlines are going to continue to do that.
In a statement, Emirates said it remained committed to Australia and would continue to operate flights to Perth twice a week. Today's announcement is just the latest blow for thousands of Australians stranded overseas. But with the virus still running rampant across much of the world, there's little political imperative, it seems, to bring them home. Linton.
So, as we know, that the reason given there is operational reasons, and of course there are many things that could be covered under operational reasons. But it is an area which we will really need to watch. But in the meantime, people say it's probably something to do with Australia's management of the COVID. But, when you look at other countries, I think Australia did manage quite well. But here's what Penny Wong has to say on the situation.
Today's announcement by Emirates that it is cancelling flights into Australia is devastating news for so many Australians. We have nearly 40,000 Australians stranded overseas who've asked their country for help, who've asked their government for help, and now they face an even more uncertain future as more and more flights dry up. We wouldn't be in this mess if Scott Morrison had done what is his responsibility, and that is to deliver a safe national quarantine system. But he didn't. He handballed it to the states, and now Australians are paying the price.
Now Australians are paying the price, as Penny Wong, and of course everyone has got their own points of views. And when we look at Australia overall, I think Australia has managed it quite well. Well, some of the things that could have been done from the very, very beginning was, when we talked about all the testings that, every flights could have been operating, but people probably should have had their tests done, and if they tested positive or whatever, they did not get on the flights. But the problem was the turnaround time of the tests. So if you wanted to get on a flight, you would need to have a lead-up time to get those tests done. And that's why, if you were all clear, you didn't even need to go into quarantine on arrival, and that would have saved the government a bucket load of money. But anyway, that is the way things go. Well, right now, there are many Australians, as we have seen from this report, who are overseas. and they're stuck there. So what's happening with them? So there have been 20 new flights that have been arranged. Here's that report.
Our government is pleased today to announce that we are scheduling a further 20 facilitated flights to help bring more Australians home. This is in addition to 90 facilitated flights the government has operated already through the course of helping to bring Australians home. These flights will fly from priority areas around the world, making sure that the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, off of their intelligence and knowledge of where Australians most need assistance, target those flights. Of crucial importance, these facilitated flights will bring Australians home over and above the caps that have been agreed by National Cabinet. So it will create additional places for Australians to get home over and above those caps by transporting people into Howard Springs in the Northern Territory, Canberra or Tasmania, locations that are willing to work above those caps on case-by-case basis. We'll work closely with authorities in those jurisdictions to make sure that it is all done with the strictest procedures and protocols to keep people safe. The capacity that Emirates had within the cap to bring Australians home will now be reallocated to those other airlines, so there's no loss of capacity into Australia. We want to see the cap utilised across the states and territories, and our additional flights are going to create additional places over and above that cap.
So over and above that cap is the extra 20 flights that have been arranged. Okay, what about the Aussies who have been vaccinated or are waiting after vaccination?
So I was a nurse in Australia, so I thought, I'd just keep doing it here. And obviously when we first moved here, the pandemic barely even started. We had no idea it was going to be what it is. And so I've ended up just working through, being an emergency nurse, working in the UK through the pandemic, through the entire 2020 pretty much. The first vaccine that came out in the UK was the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. So I think a lot of the staff then got an email through our work emails requesting that saying that we would have a time slot available for us to book in and get the first dose of the vaccine. For me, I think it was a pretty smooth process. The nurse telling me that it was a very delicate vaccine. You had to handle it with such slow care. Had to keep it in the dark as much as possible. It's just never heard.
So that's a vaccine update there coming from the UK. We will later on look at the vaccine update coming from India as well. But right now, let's go to New South Wales and look at the number of cases there.
New South Wales recorded 6 new locally acquired cases of COVID in the 24 hours to 8 p.m. last night. All 6 cases are close contacts of the Western Sydney case reported yesterday. So this brings the total to 4,877. There were 12,764 tests reported to 8 p.m. last night, and that's a decline on testing levels. It is critical that we get those testing rates up very high so that we can detect these unrecognised chains of transmission. And the areas that I'm particularly calling out for testing are in Bankstown, Lidcombe, Auburn, Baralla and Wentworthville. The investigations into the source are continuing, so we don't know the exact link to their source. We are waiting for genome sequencing, which will be available later today. One of these members is a worker at Concord Repatriation General Hospital, and they're now in isolation, but did work some shifts whilst in the cardiology and radiology wards whilst potentially infectious on the 12th, 13th and 14th of January. But the person's role involves minimal patient contact, and they also wore a face mask during each of their shifts. So it is pleasing to say that the 7 close contacts, their workplace contacts, have already been tested and tested negative.
So there's an update there from New South Wales in our health department of the number of cases and how that's being handled. Well, as he mentioned there that, the testing is not up to date, meaning the numbers have declined. People are, feeling a little bit more relaxed. So the Premier of New South Wales is also calling upon that, and she says that the number of testing must increase.
All of us want to see those restrictions we have in place eased. All of us want to be confident we can go back to what we had before Christmas, and that will only be possible if we get those high rates of testing to give our contact tracers, to give our health experts the confidence that we are on top of any unknown strains of the virus.
And of course, without the testing, no one would know. But in the meantime, the other comments he made was about Victoria. And of course, we know Victorian border was closed by New South Wales, and now what Victoria is doing, so she's not very happy on that, and she comments on Daniel Andrews' move.
He's not been in touch with me at all, but I'd also say that should have occurred quite a while back, because we don't have a hotspot in New South Wales. We are, of course, dealing with the result of an outbreak we had from a month ago, but I think everybody would agree that closing a border of such significance is a really big deal, and I stress that we waited till Victoria had in excess of 100, I think it was 180 cases they had the day after we announced the border closure. So just to put things into perspective, those decisions are difficult ones. They affect a lot of people, and I would just ask people to really think about those decisions before they're taken.
Yes, of course, sometimes people say that decision wasn't made quick enough. And some decisions, has to be evidence-based. And as he said, in the point of context, the time when they closed the border and look at the numbers that were in there at that time. Well, when we talk about laws and rules, do we leave the, celebrity stars or, sports people out? Or does the rule apply to each and everyone across the board? As we know, that New South Wales Premier got into trouble after the testing that, she didn't go and self-isolate herself after the testing. She had got the testing done. So she was grilled over that. How do, cricket or tennis players get away with this? Here's that report.
There are a small few who are testing our procedures, and we would encourage them to remain in their rooms. Again, these procedures are in place to keep people safe, and when people come out of their rooms, it's not just about the breach of the order that they're on, but it is also placing them and our staff and the community at risk. There is zero tolerance for breaches of IPC, and we will deal with those people. I had a conversation with Victoria Police this morning to ensure that we are increasing our compliance and enforcement efforts, and there is zero tolerance for that behaviour. So we take all breaches really seriously. So for players, that's a fine of up to $20,000, a warning from Victoria Police. But what we've also considered today is for those who are persistently breaching or not willing to, remain in their rooms, our other option will be to transfer people to the complex care hotel where they'll have a Victoria Police member outside their door. So some of these challenge behaviours include, I'll give you two examples, a player who opened his door to try and have a conversation with his training mate down the hallway. Again, he's got a phone. You can pick up the phone and use the telephone as opposed to putting yourself and other people at risk. The other was another gentleman who shouted some Uber Eats to some other people on the floor and was praising himself for his great efforts and opened his door to do so. It is really low level but really dangerous acts which we just can't tolerate.
It's dangerous act as well, and of course when people do things like that and they post it on social media, everyone knows. So you would think otherwise before taking those kind of steps. But the thing is that the rules should apply to everyone across the board. Otherwise, what's the sense of having those rules? Well, right now, let's get up the news from one of our other sponsors, GlobeNet Realty.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralted.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And GlobeNet Realty, real estate is our world, and that is so. Well, right now, let's go to overseas news. Having finished all the local news, first up, we go to UK, and then the major story for today would be the vaccination drive in India. Well, right now, let's go to UK as UK tightens its borders.
In spite of all the efforts of our doctors and nurses and our medical staff, we're now seeing cancer treatments sadly postponed, ambulances queuing, and intensive care units are spilling over into adjacent wards. And with 55,761 positive cases since yesterday, and very sadly 1,280 deaths, this is not the time for the slightest relaxation of our national resolve and our individual efforts. And it's precisely because we have the hope of that vaccine and the risk of new strains coming from overseas that we must take additional steps now to stop those strains from entering the country. So yesterday we announced that we're banning flights from South America and Portugal, and to protect us against the risk of as yet unidentified new strains, we will also temporarily close all travel corridors from 0400 hours on Monday. Following conversations with the devolved administrations, we will act together so this applies across the whole of the UK.
And those measures have been put in place there. Well, right now we go to the lead story for today, the vaccination drive in India. And this footage is brought to you by the courtesy of RSTV, meaning Rajya Sabha TV, English section. And this is a report on the vaccination drive, a very historic day for India. A few days back when the vaccination was launched in a very, very large scale.
The biggest story of the day, India took a landmark step in its fight against coronavirus. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched India's Mission Vaccination, the world's largest inoculation drive against COVID-19. Addressing the nation ahead of the launch, the Prime Minister asserted that the Made in India vaccines being rolled out will ensure a decisive victory for the country over the coronavirus pandemic. Also congratulating the people of the country for the rollout of the two vaccines, the Prime Minister urged people to follow the mantra of Dawai Bhi, Kadai Bhi, asking them to stay vigilant even with the vaccination process having begun. Here's a report.
संकट के उसी समय में, निराशा के उसी वातावरण में कोई आशा का भी संचार कर रहा था। हमें बचाने के लिए अपने प्राणों को संकट में डाल रहा था। हमारे डॉक्टर, नर्स, पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ, एम्बुलेंस ड्राइवर, आशा वर्कर, सफाई कर्मचारी, पुलिस के साथी और दूसरे फ्रंटलाइन वर्कर्स, उन्होंने मानवता के प्रति अपने दायित्व को प्राथमिकता दी। इसलिए आज कोरोना का पहला टीका स्वास्थ्य सेवा से जुड़े लोगों को लगाकर एक तरह से समाज अपना ऋण चुका रहा है।
An emotional Prime Minister paying tribute to the frontline warriors in India's fight against COVID-19. Launching the world's largest vaccination exercise against coronavirus, Prime Minister Modi said that the program is driven by humanitarian concerns and those exposed to maximum risk will get priority.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः
भारत का टीकाकरण अभियान बहुत ही मानवीय और महत्वपूर्ण सिद्धांतों पर आधारित है। जिसे सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी है उसे सबसे पहले कोरोना का टीका लगेगा। जो हमारे डॉक्टर्स हैं, नर्सेस हैं, अस्पताल में सफाई कर्मी हैं, मेडिकल पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ हैं, वो कोरोना की वैक्सीन के सबसे पहले हकदार हैं। इन सभी के वैक्सीनेशन का खर्च भारत सरकार द्वारा उठाया जाएगा।
The Prime Minister congratulated the scientists and experts for developing 2 made-in-India vaccines in a very short span of time, saying that this feat is a testimony to the capabilities and expertise of Indian scientists.
आम तौर पर एक वैक्सीन बनाने में बरसों लग जाते हैं, लेकिन इतने कम समय में एक नहीं 2 मेड इन इंडिया वैक्सीन तैयार हुई है। ये भारत के सामर्थ्य, भारत की वैज्ञानिक दक्षता, भारत के टैलेंट का जीता जागता सबूत है।
He stated that these vaccines were much cheaper than alternatives being used in other countries and will ensure a decisive victory for the country over the coronavirus pandemic.
भारत की वैक्सीन्स ऐसी तकनीक पर बनाई गई हैं जो भारत में बरसों से ट्राइड और टेस्टेड है। ये वैक्सीन स्टोरेज से लेकर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन तक भारतीय स्थितियों और परिस्थितियों के अनुकूल है। यही वैक्सीन अब भारत को कोरोना के खिलाफ लड़ाई में निर्णायक जीत दिलाएगी।
Prime Minister Modi reiterated the importance of taking both shots of the vaccine. He also cautioned people to remain vigilant and take all precautions even after getting vaccinated.
कोरोना वैक्सीन की 2 डोज लगनी बहुत जरूरी है। 1 डोज ले लिया और फिर भूल गए, ऐसा गलती मत करना। और जैसा एक्सपर्ट्स कह रहे हैं, पहली और दूसरी डोज के बीच लगभग 1 महीने का अंतराल भी रखा जाएगा। आपको ये भी याद रखना है कि दूसरी डोज लगाने के 2 हफ्ते बाद ही आपके शरीर में कोरोना के विरुद्ध जरूरी शक्ति विकसित हो पाएगी। इसलिए टीका लगते ही आप असावधानी बरतने लगें, मास्क निकाल कर रख दें, 2 गज की दूरी भूल जाएं, ये सब मत करिएगा।
He also appealed to people to stay away from any propaganda and rumors. He assured people that the emergency use of the Made in India vaccines has been approved only after being absolutely sure of their safety.
हमारे वैज्ञानिक, हमारे एक्सपर्ट्स जब दोनों मेड इन इंडिया वैक्सीन की सुरक्षा और प्रभाव को लेकर आश्वस्त हुए, तभी उन्होंने इसके इमरजेंसी उपयोग की अनुमति दी है। इसलिए देशवासियों को किसी भी तरह के प्रोपेगेंडा, अफवाहें, दुष्प्रचार से बचकर रहना है।
Two made in India vaccines, one developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca and produced by the Serum Institute of India, and the other by Bharat Biotech, are being used for inoculation. According to the government, the shots will be offered first to an estimated 1 crore healthcare workers and around 2 crore frontline workers. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
As mentioned, the cost of this initial vaccination, which is to the frontline workers and medical team, will be borne by the Indian government. Well, what a great move. It is wonderful to see that happening. And as the Prime Minister, they are urged everyone, living everywhere, that to stay away from propaganda. We see so much news, some bad news, all the things coming out, especially on social media and things like that. Everyone puts in their 2 cents worth. But as the Prime Minister has urged to keep away from propaganda and just applaud the moment when the frontline workers, the scientists, this is a credit to all the scientists and the health workers who have worked behind the scenes day in, day out to put out those 2 COVIDs vaccinations. And well, it is a proud moment for India, but we'll need to monitor the situation, see how it progresses. Obviously, the Prime Minister Modi there is very, very proud of the achievements of all the scientists and all the medical team who have tested and tried and then approved this vaccination. Right now, it's time to look at some of the functions and events happening here in Brisbane. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. That's a news update for Monday, the 18th of January 2021. And of course, there's lots to talk about, and that's a lot of news that's been covering, wonderful news out of India about that vaccination. And here in Queensland, please remain vigilant if you are in the path of the cyclone. Keep an update, and if the need be, and if there's a need for, we will do a second update later in the day around 5 p.m. If there's an update that's required for the cyclone that's happening, because at 4 p.m. The government will be putting out a release after the meeting at 3 p.m. So as the Premier said that they have that meeting at 3 p.m. and by 4 p.m. we will know what's happening. So if we need to, we will then put out a second, short bulletin covering some of those up-to-dates on the cyclone that's happening there as well. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's always so good to see you. And don't forget that, later in the week, we will have the real estate updates, we'll have the travel updates, and much, much more that's happening. And we will try and see if we can bring that seminar from India that took place, but it was very late in night to be rebroadcasted here at the time. So if we get a good quality stream of that, we will say that at a different time, not at the time of this show, but at a different time, and you will all be notified. So once again, thank you very much. Please do like and share our page. Tell people about it, and of course, if you would like to be on the show, we'd like to, love to have you on the show. We can get you into the studio if we are able to make it here. We understand that under the current circumstances, not everyone can come to the studios. That's okay. We can get you in via a video link or even by phone as well. So, if you have something to share with the community, we'd love to hear from you. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. It's wonderful having your company. Be good and most importantly, remain safe.